Hi, everyone. We're going to start. This is Kim Nguyen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about the national evaluation of the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program that we'll be conducting, as well as your participation in it. Again, my name is Kim Nguyen, and I serve as the Evaluation Project Director for the study. I and Emily White, a key member of our team, will be delivering the presentation. Another key member, Jenny Scalise, will be managing the phone line, as well as the webinar's chat function. For those who don't know, to access this feature, there's a chat icon that you'll need to click on in the top right of your screen. It looks like a little comic bubble. So feel free to ask questions through this feature, as we'll be checking for questions as we're presenting. But right now, we have the lines on mute, but we'll be unmuting the line at the end of the webinar so that we can open it up to discussion. This is today's agenda. We're going to start off by giving you an introduction to the NORC evaluation team, and then we're going to give you a brief overview of the study itself, talk about the surveys, some of the terms that we use, a little bit about the topics that will be covered, and then we'll get into administering the surveys and some of the logistics that are involved, and we'll do a quick demo of what you'll experience once you select the online version. And then we'll round out today's call about reporting on the findings itself. And then we'll have a question and answer session at the end. So we have a number of partners on this evaluation project, including the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care, ProCalster, William Benson, Helene Resnick, and HSRI. But this is the key team that will be supporting the local data collection task specifically. And then so when you reach out to us, you'll see or hear from one of us to help with any technical difficulties that you might experience. And we'll have contact information for the team as we go through the slides. But these are the names that you'll likely encounter throughout the local data collection effort. So we want to first give you an idea of what the study is about. As some background, this study is funded by the Administration for Community Living, Administration on Aging. And the purpose of this evaluation is to better understand how the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program is carried out at the local, state, and federal levels, as well as its progress toward reaching program goals. The information that's collected as part of this effort will help support program planning and improvement moving forward. So the term we use for this type of evaluation is that it's a process evaluation, and its goal is to learn about how the program is being implemented, and the questions really focus on the program's processes and practices. I also want to make clear that it's not about whether the program is effective or not. That type of study is an outcome evaluation, and that will come later. As some additional background, the last comprehensive study of the Ombudsman Program was carried out over 20 years ago by the Institute of Medicine. And as you know, a lot has happened over the last 2 decades, not only in terms of the long-term care landscape, but in terms of the program itself. And this effort will offer an update to that study. So there are 4 main research questions that guide this evaluation. As we noted, it's a process evaluation, and so all the questions that you see here are very process-oriented. So first off, how is the program structured and how does it operate at the local, state, and federal level? How does the program use resources to resolve and address residents' issues and improve the quality of long-term care services? How the program coordinates with other entities in meeting its responsibilities with respect to individual as well as systems advocacy, and how the program provides feedback on successful practices and areas for improvement. And so there's a variety of questions here, but also note that some of these questions will be more relevant to some staff than others, and it really depends on your role in the program. We've developed these surveys to broadly speak to most ombudsman staff, but as you know, there's a great deal of variation across as well as within states. And so if there's a question that doesn't seem to make sense to you because it's not an activity that you perform, please feel free to select the not applicable option as a response category in the survey itself, but we'll get to that later. We just want to make sure that you know that not all the questions will resonate with everyone. We're just interested in describing the program and its similarities as well as its differences. And so to answer the research questions that were presented earlier, we look at a number of data sources, both existing and new. And last summer began phase 1 of the data collection, where we interviewed all 53 state ombudsmen and 24 federal staff and stakeholders about their perspectives and experiences with the program. We spoke with a number of staff from federal agencies and other organizations that play a role in the implementation of the program at the national or regional level. And just to give you some examples, federal entities included the Administration for Community Living, the Department of Justice, CMS, And other stakeholders include associations that support the program, such as the Ombudsman Resource Center, Consumer Voice, NASOP, NALCO, N4A, NASWAD, and some others. And then to give you an example of the remaining stakeholders, they include entities such as the Pioneer Network, Altarum, ACHA, Leading Age, and some others as well that consult or do research on the program. We try to get as many diverse perspectives on the program as possible. So we're now at the stage where we move from the federal state level to the state and local levels. So during round 2 of the data collection, we also focus on surveys rather than interviews. So the data collection differs. But state ombudsmen once again participated in this effort. And in this stage of the study is where you all come in. We're inviting local staff and volunteers in 27 randomly selected states to participate in round 2. And in these states, all local regional ombudsman staff will be asked to complete a survey as well as a sample of volunteers. And with respect to the volunteers, we expect about a quarter will be asked to complete the survey. In this slide, we present the 27 participating states by AOA region. As the only requirement in the selection was that there must be program representation in all 10 regions. And from there, the selection was random. There was no other criteria, such as program performance or any other indicator. I just want to emphasize again that the selection was random. So for the local data collection, we developed 3 surveys. And what's important to note for you all is the distinction between the lead survey and the standard survey for ombudsmen. We originally had 1, but then we broke it out into 2 to address the variation in program structure and job titles. And so the lead survey simply includes more questions about managerial responsibilities. But at the same time, you might sort of manage a program whether or not there are staff at that level. So sometimes it's absent of staff, but there may be volunteers that the ombudsman oversees. And to prepare for this local data collection, we reached out to state ombudsmen to obtain contact information for local regional staff, ombudsmen, and volunteers, and sought their guidance in helping us determine appropriate survey assignments for local regional staff ombudsmen. Also keep in mind that originally we planned to launch the data collection for staff and volunteers at the same time, but we found that programs experienced more delays in obtaining volunteer contact information. And for that reason, we staggered the data collection so that staff will start first in early May, which is around right now, and then volunteers will come in mid-May. I also wanted to note 2 key things about the survey. First, please note that your participation is voluntary. The evaluation is not part of an audit or compliance review. You can skip any questions you don't feel you have sufficient knowledge about or don't want to answer. You can also quit the survey at any time, but do submit it when you're done. We hope that you do participate in full because your input is incredibly valuable for informing program improvements moving forward. And as I noted earlier, the last evaluation of the program was conducted 2 decades ago, and this is really an opportunity to help describe how the program is being implemented today. Second, please know that your responses are confidential. We will not share your response with anyone outside of the NORC evaluation team. ACL, as well as your state program, will not know how you answered. In addition, when we report out our findings, no state or local program will be identified. For example, information on volunteers will never be reported out just for the state of Maryland or any other state. Instead, we will pool responses from all volunteers across the 27 states that are participating and then present those findings. This is also true for local ombudsman staff. So all your responses will be aggregated with other local regional ombudsmen across all state programs, and then that information is reported out. So about the surveys, here are the topics that will be covered, and this includes background information on your job as well as your previous jobs, questions about program structure and resources, state and local level coordination, program activities, program quality assurance, and some demographic information. Again, do remember that all the questions may not be relevant to you given your role, so feel free to check off the not applicable option in any of those instances. Also, each survey can be completed in one of 2 ways. There's a web-based version as well as a paper-based version, and we will accommodate whichever is your preference. We estimate that the survey in either form will take about 30 minutes to complete. And again, this will vary depending on your role in the program. And lastly, I want to note that some of the terms that we use in the survey Because of the diversity across programs, we tried to add definitions in the survey where clarity may be needed, and these are just a few examples. So first off, we have local regional ombudsmen, and that might seem very obvious, but in the Older Americans Act, this role is referred to as representatives of the office, but we felt that ombudsman resonated more with this respondent group. Ombudsmen include paid staff as well as volunteers, and then depending on the organizational structure of your program, ombudsman can be located either in the state or local office. Next, Office of the State LTCO. This is the office that's headed by the state ombudsman that oversees the program statewide. Local programs are programs that are located in decentralized structures and local entities or state offices in centralized programs. Moving on to boarding care homes. This term refers to a number of different types of facilities that are not nursing homes, and these include assisted living facilities, residential care facilities, adult congregate living facilities, foster care homes, and other adult care homes. Lastly, we have in-home services, and these are services provided to older adults in their own home. And for this term, this will not resonate to all states. It really depends on whether or not your program has state mandates to serve individuals in their home. At this point, I'm going to pass the slides on to Emily, and she'll talk about administering the surveys and give you a demo.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what to expect once we launch the survey. All participants will receive an invitation by email from NORC that will come from our project email address, ltcopsurvey@norc.org. The email invitation will contain a personalized web link for your survey. And if you have any questions or need technical assistance, or if you'd like to request a paper-based survey, you can reply back to that email or call us at this toll-free line, which will also be included in the email invitation, so you'll have all of that information at your fingertips. This is what the email invitation will look like. You can see that it comes from LTCOP survey and has a little bit of information about the survey. Again, we estimate it takes about 30 minutes to complete. We ask that you complete it by May 18th. That information is also in the email. And then you'll have this link that is personal to you so that you're able to actually return to the survey later, and it'll save all of your answers, and we'll talk about that in a second. This is what the survey will look like online if you choose to complete that version. Once you paste the link into the web browser or click on it, if clicking doesn't work, try pasting it. You'll get this welcome screen that, again, gives you a little bit about the study, our information to contact us if you need it, and a button to click to begin the survey. Once you click that, the survey will take you to the first page of questions. As you can see, it's asking you about background information. And I'm going to demo a little bit what that's going to look like live. I'm going to paste the link into my web browser. It'll take me to the survey. I'll click Begin. And here you can see there's a progress bar at the top that shows you how far you've gone in the survey. That'll give you a sense of how much you've done, how much is left to do, and whether or not you think you can get that all done in the sitting that you're doing it in. You can start to fill out answers. And progress through the questions. If you'd like to continue going through the survey, say you've answered all 5 questions on the first page and you want to keep going, you can click Save and Continue. If you'd like to end the survey, say something has come up, you can't finish it right now, and you'd like to come back to it later, you can click Save and Exit. And what that'll do is save your answers, close the survey, and you can return to it, and everything you've entered so far will still be there. So I'm going to go ahead and finish answering these questions. I'm going to click Save and Exit. It'll ask me if I'm sure. I will say yes. And then you'll want to make sure you close the old browser. It may work if you don't, but it probably won't, so that's the surest way to make sure. Close the old browser, copy the link back into a new browser. It'll take you back to the start screen. You'll click Begin, and it'll take you to where all of your answers were. See, everything I entered already has been saved. I can now click Save and Continue and go on to the next question. I'm going to save and exit. So once you've answered all the questions, you've completed the survey, you will get this screen, which asks you if you're ready to submit and gives you an opportunity to review your answers before you do. In case you want to change anything or just make sure that what you've entered is correct, you'll click this review button here. In doing so, you will also have a chance to print out the questions and answers if you'd like to have a copy of it for your records. Once you submit, you will not have access to the survey anymore, so I would suggest if you think you want to have a copy of that, I would go ahead and click review and then print the answers. Some technical tips if you do decide to do the web survey. Chrome is the recommended browser, but the survey can also be accessed and completed in Internet Explorer. So if you're using Internet Explorer and having some trouble, the first step would be to try Chrome if you have it. Otherwise, you can give us a call and we'll try to troubleshoot whatever technical issue you might be encountering. The survey does time out after 20 minutes of inactivity. So if you walk away from it, anything that you've saved will still be stored, but if you have entered any answers and not saved them yet, those will not be there anymore. So I would just suggest that anytime you finish answering some questions, click save, and you can always come back to it later. If it does time out, you'll follow the same process I just did, where you close the old browser, open a new one, paste the link, and it should take you right back to where you left off. If you decide to do the paper-based survey instead, they are exactly the same. This is what the front page of the paper survey will look like. It shows you about the study and asks you for some contact information just so we can link your survey to you. This is the same page of background questions that we just saw on the web survey. And then the last page will give you some instructions on how to return it to us. There are a couple ways you can do this. You can either print the survey and complete it by hand, and then return it back to us by mail. You could, or you could scan it and email it back to us. And then the other option is to complete it electronically if you have that capability in Word. I would suggest not trying to do that, but if you can print it and complete it by hand and then scan it, you can do that. Otherwise, you can request a postage stamp or FedEx label, whatever the preferred mailing method would be, and we will make sure that you get a label or an envelope or some postage to send it back to us through regular postal mail. And I'm going to pass it back to Kim now to talk about disseminating the findings.
Thanks, Emily. So at this point, I just wanted to let you know what we'll do with the results of this evaluation. And we'll be preparing a report based on the data collection and analyses. In terms of a timeline, we'll be writing up findings this year to produce a report, as well as 6 research briefs. And we plan to circle back to programs to let them know when this is available so that you know what comes of your contributions. And so the report will include an overview of the project, a description of our methodology, the instruments that are used, as well as a summary of the results and our key findings and conclusions. As I noted earlier, there will be a series of topical briefs that will highlight the program, as well as identify some important issues that we really want to emphasize as a result of the study collection. And then all materials will be accessible to state and local ombudsman staff and volunteers, as well as the Aging Network and other program stakeholders. We'll think through the best dissemination approaches when we get to that point, but we will be working with programs to get the information out to you all so you know what comes of all of the efforts, especially your contribution to this. Then in terms of next steps, we will send out email invites to all ombudsmen, local as well as regional, tomorrow, Friday, May 4th, and the data collection period will end Friday, May 18th, so about 2 weeks. And if you have a schedule conflict during that time, please let us know and we'll work with your schedule. You know, this is also a period of time where folks make plans and go on vacation, and we want to be sensitive to that as well. Next up. And then now we're going to open the line for any questions that you might have. We didn't obtain any over the course of the presentation, and so I'm going to have Sarah open up the line and unmute it in case you do. Also keep in mind that we are recording the session, and so we will be making it available to everyone who wasn't able to listen in today, or if you want to review some of the materials that we discussed, you have that at your disposal.
Okay, and I also just wanted to ask that if you're not asking a question, if you could just make sure that your own line is muted on your end, just to avoid background noise, that would be great. Thank you.
Your line is now unmuted.
Okay. Hi, does anyone have a question?
Yeah, hi, this is Carl Vonner in Virginia, and I'm just wondering why Chrome would be better than Internet Explorer.
Our programmers have suggested to us that that is the preferred method. I have completed testing in both browsers and have not had a problem, but that's typically the first thing they tell us to try if someone is having an issue. So if that doesn't fix it, then just give us a call.
Thanks.
I also just want to let folks know that you can also ask a question via the chat box. If you click on the chat box in the upper right-hand corner of the webinar screen, then you can ask a question that way if you prefer.
And also do know that this is not your only opportunity to ask us questions. We are available by email or phone afterwards if a question comes up that you didn't think of during today's presentation.
How long do you estimate it will take to do this survey?
We've done pilot testing on the local regional ombudsman survey, and it should take about half an hour. But as I noted earlier, this will vary depending on your role. If you have a somewhat extensive role, it might take you a little longer. Others who have more limited roles, it will take them less time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Going along with that, when do you expect to have the results of this survey?
Sure. The question was, when do we expect the results from the survey? We hope to get all of the data in by May 18th, but in terms of disseminating those results, it will be later this year. It really depends on the timeline for the volunteer data collection. We want to make sure we have all the data in before we report out for that final deliverable, as well as any research briefs. But it would be in 2018 if I were to give just a very broad timeline, but at the end of the summer, hopefully. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. I'd like to know the rationale behind your methodology in getting input from all the stakeholders prior to and leaving the actual Ombudsman program to be the last section involved.
Actually, during phase one, it was the program itself as well as stakeholders. It was really about level. So during round one of the data collection back in 2017, we interviewed all ombudsmen, all state ombudsmen, all 53, as well as federal staff and stakeholders during that period. And so what happened was actually state ombudsmen participate twice, so both in round one and in round two. The difference is we really wanted to get a sense of more qualitative information during the round one phase that could help inform the data collection in round two where we get to surveys. But in round two, state ombudsmen also participate, and so they have an overlap in both. But the programs participated from the start.
Will this survey affect funding?
No, funding for the program? Is that your?
Yes.
I'm not sure how this. Based on the data collection, we will be, recommending some suggestions to ACL based on what we've learned. And so some of those issues might touch upon funding, but not directly. It's, everyone will be asked to participate in the survey, and it's voluntary, but it doesn't have any direct impact on your particular program's funding at all. And it's also anonymous, as I mentioned earlier. We really want to maintain everyone's confidentiality in this process, and all the information will be aggregated when we report them out. Any other questions?
This is Lori Brewer in New Jersey.
Oh, hi, Lori. How are you doing?
My question again is, when they're asking questions about what type of program you are, I'm still not sure about this one, because did you change this structure and resources at all since I saw an early version of this?
Yes, we have. So for some programs, the State Ombudsman requested a draft of the survey instrument. And based on those conversations, we've made some refinements to the study to ensure that there are more response options that included not applicable in case it didn't apply to the particular respondent.
Okay. As long as the non-applicable is on there, because,
yes.
I mean, our staff they're in the field, but they're part of a centralized program. There is no difference between us and them.
Right, exactly. And that's a great example. And we did go through the instrument and identify areas based on, for example, New Jersey structure, what would the response option be, and we've incorporated them throughout after our call.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? So we're hitting about almost 2:30 now, but let's do a last call for questions. And then we will, once we obtain a recording of the webinar, we will share it with the State Ombudsman to disseminate to their staff. Unless someone has that to us directly, we can also send it to you as well. But let's do last call for questions. And also remember, do feel free to reach out to us by phone or email after this presentation. Okay. I think that's it then. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We really welcome and hope you'll participate in the study, and reach out to us if you need anything or have any other questions.
Great, thank you.